discussion with that. I think that would be a little anyway.
We can speak now to Joanne Cummings. She's an adjunct professor and director of Middle Eastern Studies at Baylor University in Waco, Texas, and she was previously a senior U.S. diplomat with postings in Iraq and Yemen. Joanne, thank you for joining us tonight on BBC News. How significant would it be if we were to see Israel hit Iranian oil sites?
Well, I think it would be devastating, not just to Iran, but also to the oil sites in the region and the oil market, the energy market around the world. I mean, this would not be something that would stop in one place. It would not be something that either Israel or the United States would come out of unscathed. And I mean that economically. In terms of whether it would actually be effective in changing Iranian views, I think it's important to look at Iran as a country as opposed to simply a target. I actually went to high school there, so I'm very familiar with the country and people. When Saddam Hussein invaded Iran right after the revolution, it was very weakened, and people were like, oh, this is going to be super easy, but Iran is going to pull together and it's going to fight back. So I think that it is important to understand the dynamics within the country, in addition to looking at the geostrategic threat that Iran and its activities may pose to Israel, the United States, and other places.
That's a really interesting point, Joanne. I also want to ask you about the ongoing Israeli operations against Hezbollah in Lebanon. After senior leadership, including Hassan Nasrallah, have been killed, how much do we know about Hezbollah's forces right now? How much have they been decimated by this fighting, these strikes?
It's a very, very good question. Clearly, Israel was able to target many of the leaders in various places. And they also struck at people who were healthcare workers and the rest of it, but they did take out a certain stratum of the leadership. Whether or not that is going to weaken the organization as an ideological base, I think that's an open question. Whether it is actually affecting the ability of the organization to communicate internally is another issue again. So I think that there are several different questions when we say, is it weaker? Will it go away? I don't think the strikes are heading in that direction. Will it be less able to conduct a coordinated strike? I think that's very likely. But we're also looking at Lebanon in terms of being Hezbollah in terms of being in Lebanon. And we remember, Hezbollah was really formed because of the Israeli occupation of South Lebanon. So, going back in may not be the most productive way of resolving Hezbollah.
Okay.
Hezbollah has been a thorn in the side of the Lebanese government, but it's also part of the Lebanese government.
That's my next question, actually, Hezbollah's place in Lebanon, because we spoke to a Lebanese MP earlier in this week, and he said that people in Lebanon really are mixed over what's happening. They didn't give approval, let's say, to Hezbollah to carry out strikes on Israel since October 8th, but they're also not happy with Israel. I mean, where do people in Lebanon stand?
Well, since I grew up in Lebanon, I'm very aware of how many different voices there are. And I served in Israel, and I'm aware of how many different voices there are too. So talking about the people is problematic. I think that in this particular case, the more the strikes from Israel are affecting a broad range of people, and when you're striking near the airport and you're affecting planes going in and out, and you're hitting buildings next to other buildings, the more people feel this is an attack on all of us, as opposed to an attack on Hezbollah. And the Israeli expectation that people are going to blame all of this on Hezbollah, I think, does not take into account the very human response to, I am being bombed by those people and I don't like it.
Just one more question, Joanne. Do you see any opportunity here for de-escalation to what's happening?
Always. There is always an opportunity for de-escalation. In this particular case, if it is the Israeli view that they're going to do big strikes in Lebanon in lieu of an attack on Iran, then resolving things or calming things down in Lebanon may allow the Israeli government to say, okay, we've done a response, and we feel confident that it's going to reduce the risk to our people, and so we're going to pull back. I think it's worth going back and looking at the words of Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi at the United Nations when he said, "We are ready.
Right.
We are ready to do peace. We need to have movement on the rights of Palestinians." So that is one hope for de-escalation if people pick up on that.
Joanne, thank you so much for joining us tonight on BBC News. Really good to get your perspective.
My pleasure.